Hi everyone, Deanna King for those who don't know me, and on this channel we discuss all things narcissism and codependency. Today the topic that I want to discuss is verbal abuse, so let's dive right in. Many of us see verbal abuse as name calling, which of course is unacceptable, and it is verbal abuse, but verbal abuse reaches far deeper than name calling. I'm referring to covert verbal abuse. It is subtle, it is hard to recognize, and it is utterly damaging. Verbal abuse is basically any type of word communication or non-communication that is intended to harm the victim in some way, and narcissists use this type of abuse to have control over their victims. Other than the overt verbal abuse that's a non-brainer to detect, like yelling and name-calling, the covert verbal abuse is so subtle it's hard to tell that the abuse is happening. One sneaky manipulative tactic that the narcissist may use is telling the partner that friends or family of the partner are not as the victim sees them. They might say that their family views themselves above everyone else, where the victim begins to question the perception that they had about their family. Now, the reason that the victim may buy into the belief has to do with conditioning, as they learn to never trust their own beliefs. The abuser presents as rational to the victim, and according to Carl Jung, you have this archetype of the male being the one of logic and reasoning. And if you look at your family dynamics, most family dynamics, it was always the father figure or male energy seen as the decision maker, the one that had more male energy. The conditioning didn't start with the narcissist that you're perhaps with today. It started in childhood. Growing up, you may have heard statements like, "suck it up," or "stop being such a baby." So you were taught to never express yourself. And if you weren't able to express, then you wouldn't have been able to acknowledge. And if you couldn't acknowledge, then you couldn't give yourself permission to be you. It's that simple. As complicated as it is, it's that simple. Now, seeing the father figure being the rational one, it only stood to reason that others were the irrational ones. You may have witnessed experiences of your father telling your mother that she was too emotional, or if she was upset about something, so she was the irrational one. Or that if she wanted a new dress, he would make that decision because, again, he was the rational one. He was always above. And I'm not saying that in parenting that it was only the father that was the narcissist here. I'm talking about the male energy, the bossy one. And perhaps in this, even you were probably told that you were too sensitive. So now subconsciously, deep down, you second guess yourself in situations, believing that you're irrational and your partner is the rational one, because either he's male or has male energy, if female. And you believe that your partner is rational even though they display moments of complete irrationality. So now let's say that the abuser here is male and the victim is female. He starts behaving irrationally. Maybe he's having a hissy fit and jumping up and down like a 5-year-old. The victim will still look for a logical explanation as to why her partner is so angry or why he's behaving in this manner. She might reason with the fact that her partner had a hard childhood upbringing and just can't control his emotions, because there are other times where he's perfectly rational, where she looks up to him. Like Jekyll and Hyde, the behavior jumps back and forth from rational to irrational, in turn keeping the victim in a confused state where the victim desperately seeks to make sense of what's going on. Which is why you guys are all on YouTube watching videos on narcissistic abuse. You're here trying to find answers, and you're confused because of the conditioning. You too are going from logical to illogical because the conditioning is so subtle and happens over time until the damage is done. I mean, look at the story that most of you probably already know about the frog that dies boiled to death. The first frog that they placed in a pot of boiling water immediately jumps out, but the second frog is placed in cold water, where every day the water temperature is raised until one day it's boiling, where the frog dies. And the frog dying like that has all to do with adaptability. And part of conditioning has to do with adapting. The frog never noticed the gradual change, and so it is with you. Little by little, the abuser will say things like, I have to be careful around you. I noticed that you're very sensitive. Or, I get that you had a hard childhood, but... And then later, they'll up the ante with bolder, colder statements like, you need help with your childhood crap. You're always trying to start fights, which causes the victim to go deeper down the rabbit hole into more self-doubt and cognitive dissonance, because don't forget, Jekyll and Hyde are still at play here. Now Jekyll comes out with more conditioning with statements such as, we're in this together, the rational at play here. And a statement like that leaves the victim feeling as though she had a part to play in causing the abuser to get upset. Or they might say something like, you should be grateful. Not everyone has a home, where the victim feels like they're asking for too much and now they feel guilt. Another statement is, we should be nicer to each other. We? Again, the intent here is to make the partner feel like they were part of the problem. One that they often use, especially when they feel that they're losing ground, is keep trying, where the victim feels that there's still more that they can do. And this is all covert verbal abuse. Covert, as you all know, means hidden. When it's overt, you know you're being attacked. They're calling you horrible names and accusing you out loud. When it's covert, they're using their words to manipulate you. They're telling you what you're feeling. They're telling you what you're thinking. They're using the word should a lot. Like, you should think about how this new job of yours is going to affect our family. All manipulation to control you. Covert verbal abuse can also look like statements such as, you don't know what you're talking about. And when you find yourself considering the idea that perhaps they might be right, you've been conditioned. When a person is telling you who you are and what you're thinking, when a person is telling you that they know you better than you know yourself, you are looking at underground covert verbal abuse. This type of abuse leaves you feeling shame and inept. It leaves you feeling confused. Covert verbal abuse is indirect. I mean, it's so indirect that if you were to approach your friends and told them that you were being abused because your partner is telling you things like you're too sensitive or they never said that, your friends would think that you're the unhinged one. And in a sense, you have come unhinged because this type of abuse is so covert that the victim's capacity to recognize the abuse is impaired. Some of the telltale signs of this impairment are as follows. Number one, incessant thoughts, constantly trying to rationalize or make some kind of sense as to what's going on, desperately trying to find the rational in the irrational. Number two, the freeze response. That one day where Jekyll doesn't come home for dinner and Hyde shows up. You're being yelled at out of left field or accused of something so preposterous that you go into a state of shock. You freeze. I mean, what are you supposed to respond to something so insidious? Number three, and this one goes with the freeze response, confusion. You walk around your day in a fog, not knowing what to do with this new life of yours. You feel paralyzed. Number four, nothing is ever clear, ever. When you ask for proof of something or clarification for some accusation made against you, you never get a response on the matter. There is never any clarity in conversations. Communication is always clear as mud. Number five, you feel like a non-person. You're always being told what to do or what not to do. You have no say, no control in any part of your life. Number six, you are zombified. You spend your days lost, just taking one step at a time, busying yourself, just going through the motions. The word joy has become a word from a distant past that you can hardly describe anymore. And lastly, number seven, you are afraid. You're afraid to address issues that you need to address. You're afraid to start a new project in fear of their response. You always have to have their okay to do anything that you want to do, because if you don't check in with them, it'll end up costing you. They make sure of it. When you're in a relationship like that, you just can't be yourself. When a victim expresses his or her pain regarding what the abuser did or said to them, the abuser invalidates their feelings, and it's familiar because the victim was raised having their wants, thoughts, and feelings invalidated. And this is why being able to identify your emotions is so important. When we can really look at the emotions we feel, and I'm talking about beyond the feelings of hurt and anger, it lets us know right from wrong. It gives us permission to move forward. It helps us to understand. That's why emotional literacy is so important. It lets us acknowledge and validate what we're feeling. It gives us clarity, and we can make concrete, logical decisions. We become the logical ones. For example, I feel rejected. I am being rejected. I feel mocked. I am being mocked. See the aha moment here? In a verbally abusive relationship, the conversations are never about communication. They're about control and competition. The partner is never an equal, ever. The abuser does not want to see you as an equal, nor will they ever want to see you as an equal. That's why there are never mutual plans together regarding vacations or finances, for example. They will always have the last say in what goes. What you want is irrelevant. Isn't that disgusting? You're being treated inhumane. Communication doesn't exist. Truths are denied, such as the infamous "I never said that" or "that never happened." The wanted communication never gets cleared up. Nothing is ever resolved, and it isn't because they don't understand. They do. They know they hurt you. They know they said what they said. They don't want the resolution. It's just not what they're after. It's control they're after. You have different goals. The fact that you're always walking away feeling unheard and not understood was the goal. So stop trying. You're wasting your time. And when you stop trying is where you may not win, but they lose because they didn't get the fight. Another thing in communication, or rather non-communication, is that the abuser never opens up about anything. You can be with them for 20 years and they'll still be a mystery. You don't know their dreams, their wants, their fears, nor their past. And in this, you feel frustrated, isolated, and disconnected. It leaves you feeling unsupported, uncared for, and rejected as a human being. And if you push an issue on getting an answer, even on innocent things like what are your weekend plans, so that you yourself can plan your weekend, it is met with fury and still goes unanswered. For example, if the victim was hoping to get something in the house taken care of, like some home repair that needs to get done, they might carefully approach the abuser with the statements such as, "What are your plans for the weekend?" And the abuser will immediately shut it down with a cold, harsh statement like, "How would I know what I'm doing? It's only Wednesday." So the victim might answer something like, "I was just asking," and mentions the repairs, only to be yelled at with accusations of the victim being controlling and impossible to live with. Everything is chaos with them. Verbal abuse can also look like the abuser saying that they aren't angry when clearly they are. And again, if the issue gets pushed, the victim is being accused of looking to start fights and is the angry one. So here the abuser has been verbally abusive in two ways. The obvious one, of course, is the overt accusations. And the second one was the wall that they put up, the "I'm not angry," so that the partner is denied communication. She herself can't be verbal, hence verbal abuse. Hostile words are always being relayed to the victim like, "You're never happy," or "I don't know what to do with you. What's wrong with you?" These messages, they leave the victim feeling more self-doubting than they did when they first walked into the relationship. Anxiety is a feeling that they wake up with that follows them throughout the day. They can no longer make decisions in fear of the consequences, and because they've lost complete trust in their own selves. They also no longer trust that anyone else in the future would be any safer to be around. So the only thing that's left in their minds is hope for finding a solution to this chaos, finding a way to make sense of what's happening. They're in survival mode, because if they can find some sort of logic, they can fix it. And I'm really glad that you're all here at this point seeking answers, because you can fix it, not with them, but with yourself, with your own life. Search deep, look to what you're feeling, learn about emotional intelligence. It'll get you to acknowledge self, because the acknowledgement is how you get to fix it. I leave you with this to ponder on, and we shall see you in the next video, hopefully anyway. So don't give up. You will get there. Bye for now.